Supreme Court's test of the president's tariff policies. Arguments in the nation's highest court are just getting underway. We will soon learn where the justices stand on this key piece of the president's economic agenda, and also the limits of his presidential powers. Let's get right to CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson. She's also a professor at Loyola Law School. Jessica, always good to see you. So take us through what we can expect to hear today.
So I think what we can expect to hear today is the president saying, I have the power to impose these tariffs. Vlad, as you know, we have to go all the way back to the Constitution to figure out who has the power. This case is all about who decides. When we look at the Constitution gives Congress the power to impose taxes and tariffs and regulate foreign commerce. But Congress can give some of that power away. The question is whether or not they did so when it comes to this late 1970s federal law that we're going to call the IEEPA, to save me from having to say the whole thing. And so the question is whether or not under this federal statute, the president can impose tariffs when he says there's a national emergency. We know that this statute has never been used to impose tariffs, and we know that it doesn't include the word tariffs. It says when there's a national emergency that the president has the power to regulate commerce. The question is whether or not tariffs falls within that. President says it does. This is a broad grant of authority. Those challenging the president say, no, it absolutely does not. You're overstepping your authority. And last thing I'll say, either the Congress didn't give enough direction or Congress couldn't even give this much power away.
Yeah, Article 1, Section 8. I remember that not just from Schoolhouse Rock, but also my fifth grade civics class, Jessica. And so it will be interesting to see if the court goes with this, I guess, 70s era legislation that perhaps gave the president this loophole that he's looking for. But the question, of course, is how would the court come to the decision that the president cannot impose these tariffs?
So if the court says that the president overstepped his authority, the first part is the easier part, which is that the tariffs have to stop. That's equitable or injunctive relief. The tricky part as with respect to a remedy is what about the monetary relief, the damages? Do you try and unwind the tariffs and provide people with refunds? Who gets the refunds? Is it the companies? Is it the companies that passed on these higher costs to customers? That's where it's a bit more, frankly, of an administrative mess. And so obviously we have to see question number one, does the Supreme Court say you overstepped your authority? And then question number two, if they did, what can those challenging this tariffs get as a result? And I will say, shout out to your fifth grade teacher who really did a great job.
I think it's in one of those Schoolhouse Rock episodes, too. But wait, Jessica, so does that mean that these companies could potentially sue? And who would they sue? The federal government?
That's right. They could potentially try and recoup these higher costs. We know that the government has enjoyed a lot of additional revenue as a result of those tariffs. If the president never had the power to impose the tariffs in the first place, then he didn't have any legal grounding, and therefore you would try and find a way to unwind. Now, if this were a normal contract dispute, this would be easier. I paid you, I overpaid, you have to pay me the difference. Obviously, it's much more difficult when we think about something to this size and scope.
Wow, what a mess. All right, Jessica Levinson, as always, my friend, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's bring in CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand, who's joining me live from Washington, the White House lawn. So, Natalie, I know the president was meeting today with some GOP lawmakers. Did he mention at all what's happening over at SCOTUS?
Yeah, notably in the remarks that were captured on camera before the press pool was ushered out of the room, he did not comment on this Supreme Court case. We're waiting to see if he takes questions this hour as he departs for a business event in Miami. But yes, notably, he did not bring up the court case, and he's also, not attending it. Initially, he had signaled that he might want to actually watch it in person. But then we learned that the president thought that that would be a distraction. His Treasury Secretary is going instead. But he's made clear on social media where he stands on this case, calling this case, quote, life or death to the country, saying that without the ability to enact these sweeping tariffs, the U.S. is, quote, virtually defenseless against other countries who have for years taken advantage of us. Now, the administration has argued that these tariffs are about economic and national security, that they've raised tens of billions of dollars in revenue. That's something that you and Jessica were just talking about. You know, trade deals have been negotiated based on these so-called reciprocal tariffs. So there is a lot at stake for the administration in defending what's become one of its signature policies, Vlad.
All right. Obviously, we'll have much more on the Supreme Court later this hour. But what did the president say about the shutdown during that meeting with those GOP senators?
Yeah, from what we saw, the president struck a more reflective tone, reflecting on not only last night's election losses for Republicans, but also, you know, the ongoing government shutdown, what's become now a new record shutdown. And he once again really amplified his message to Senate Republicans that they should, in his view, eliminate the filibuster to get GOP legislation passed. That is something that Republican leaders on Capitol Hill have been opposed to, and he kind of alluded to that as well in some of his new remarks. Take a listen.
We have to get the country open, and the way we're going to do it this afternoon is to terminate the filibuster. And it's possible you're not going to do that, and I'm going to go by your wishes. You're very smart people. We're good friends, but I think it's a tremendous mistake, really. It would be a tragic mistake, actually. It's time. It's time.
So new direct pressure from the president in person to Senate Republicans. But yesterday on social media, in talking about eliminating the filibuster, he also alluded to wanting Republicans to pass voter reform, signaling that, you know, next year's midterms are also on his mind. Vlad.
All right. Natalie Brand at the White House for us. Natalie, thank you.